On March 13, 2022, Rock'n'Roll777 tweeted, "Male manipulator in the year 15,000 BCE. Honestly, I think gathering is even more impressive than hunting in some ways." This is the Museum of Twitter, the show where we talk about the most important tweets in the history of Twitter.com. It's Subscriber Sunday, where my Patreon subscribers nominate and then vote on which tweet I cover, and this Sunday, they chose one that I think is relevant for the discourse these days. Because I feel like there's a lot of discourse these days about the male manipulator. The type of guy who pretends to be a good guy, pretends to be a feminist, pretends to be woke as it were, only to try to get girls to sleep with him. There's been talk about male manipulators just reading certain books in public in order to seem like they're woke, and while I obviously have no experience being manipulated by a male manipulator, I definitely can understand that they're a thing that exists. Do I personally find the discourse a little annoying because it makes it seem like trying to be a good person is a thing that a man only would do if he's trying to get into a woman's pants? Yeah, that does annoy me a little bit, but I understand where it comes from. There are worse things in the world than having to prove that you're being sincere. This tweet posits that this phenomenon has been going on for millennia, specifically all the way back in 15,000 BCE. And whereas a male manipulator today might say things like, yeah, being a woman in society is way harder than being a man, a male manipulator in 15,000 BCE would talk about how gathering is actually harder and more important than hunting. Now, as many people who are historians and anthropologists pointed out, hunting and gathering was not strictly a gendered thing in a lot of societies back in the day, but I don't think that this joke needs to be super accurate in order to get its point across. And while the original version of this tweet has been deleted, it's been retweeted as a screenshot a bunch, and to one of those screenshots, Anna quoted it and said, "I love thinking about how human brains have been evolved at the same level for 100,000 years, because this is probably literally true." Because yeah, when I think about it, I can literally imagine that 17,000 years ago, there probably were dudes who were looking to find a mate, and one of the ways they did it is by saying yeah, that berry gathering is great, that's so much more impressive than the deer I killed. Now, another correction that a lot of people had in the quotes is pointing out that gathering was actually more impressive back in the day. Cherryplum says gathering was always more impressive, gathered food was the staple that people survived on, no man was out there hunting every single day, but gathering was a must. And Red said, "Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the assumption that gathering actually was more of the caloric intake that hunter-gatherer civilizations ran off of. Not to say it's more impressive, but it was literal more food." Now, I do appreciate these pieces of context, do appreciate these corrections, but I do kind of feel like they're making the point of the original post. Because I would argue that the male manipulators today, the things that they say about women, about how hard it is to be a woman, those are also true. A male manipulator might say to a woman, yeah, it's so much harder to be a woman in the workplace these days. And while he's saying that to be manipulator, it is true. I'm sure that there are male manipulators who go above and beyond, but as far as I understand it, most male manipulators are just saying things that are true about the trials and tribulations of being a woman or a person of color in the world. They're full of it because they don't actually care about those things, but the things they're saying are true. And so yeah, the male manipulator in 15,000 BCE would be telling the truth by saying that gathering is more impressive, but he wouldn't believe it. He wouldn't be saying it because he believes it, he'd be saying it because he's manipulating the person. Now, some people tried to plus it up. Just a few days after the original one was tweeted, someone basically stole it but made it a little more internet lingo sounding. Tonka said, "Male manipulator in 10,000 BC. We stand a gathering queen, haha. I think that gathering is actually harder than hunting in some ways, you know?" But the plus up I actually enjoyed was Ruth, who quoted it and said, "Identifying as an intersectional feminist because he's DTF Neanderthals." I texted my twin brother, who is an anthropology major in college, to confirm that Neanderthal is pronounced with a silent H, but he hasn't gotten back to me yet, so if I'm wrong, blame him. Okay, he got back to me as I was editing this, and he said, "Technically, yes, but language is language, so." Which is such a him answer, and I really respect the fact that he is not trying to be a definitive source on anything, but this is very helpful, Michael. And Nathan expanded the conversation even more. He said, "Making sure the gatherers cleaning and boiling roots can hear. Gathering is proto-agriculture, replanting bet to pop off in a big way for real." Checking again. "I'd rather gather for real if I wasn't so good at endurance hunting." Look, I really have no doubt that guys like this have existed since 15,000 BCE, because I would never underestimate humanity's ability to lie, cheat, and steal in order to get some action. And I wish I could say that there was some great tip to identify the difference between someone who actually does care about gathering being more impressive than hunting and someone who's saying it just because they want to get into the gatherer's pants. Or loincloth, as it were. But I don't know, I think even in 15,000 BCE, same as it is today, it's just vibes. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no big secret to telling if someone is sincere in really any situation than just an intangible vibe. Follow for a new tweet every day, and if you like what you see, if you want to support the show, I sincerely would appreciate it if you go to patreon.com/museum of Twitter. We get a weekly bonus episode called the Museum of Not Twitter, and you get to vote on Subscriber Sunday posts like these.